Hi, it's Keith and Bates here, and I thought I'd have another shot at trying to explain transactions. So the whole purpose of a blockchain is basically to record transactions, and the way I like to look at transactions on a blockchain is very similar to the way that transactions are described in an SQL database. Namely, it's a sort of a unit of data that indicates that a change has taken place. In an SQL database, a transaction is basically an SQL statement that makes a change to the structure of the database or to the data within it. So when you do a database dump, you end up with a file full of SQL statements, each one of which is a transaction that moves the state of the database on somehow. And I think it's very similar in blockchains in that a transaction shows that data has either been added or has been changed. So for example, if we look at Bitcoin, when you have a new block, you have a coinbase transaction. That's a transaction that creates Bitcoins out of thin air every time a block is added. And then you have all the input-output transactions. Those are the ones where Bitcoins are effectively moved from ownership of one party to ownership of another. If you are looking at a blockchain where things like data are being stored on it, then the concept of a transaction becomes less clear, because, for example, if you look at multi-chain, you can store any kind of JSON data on it as you like. So there, the change that's been effected is storing a particular blob of data on the blockchain. So thinking about it, they're not as complicated as I first felt they were when I tried to talk about them. There's sort of one final note, which is I've been talking about classical blockchains in the mold of Bitcoin. There are a whole bunch of different structures for blockchains out there now. For example, things like tangles or directed acyclic graphs, where you can actually end up not having blocks, and effectively each transaction is its own block. And there the data change comes with a whole bunch of extra information that links it into the web of other transactions in order to lock it down. So this is just a quick summary of what transactions are. They're not earth-shattering, and there's plenty of articles out there that you can read if you want to know more about them. In particular, if you're technically minded, you can go and look at, for example, the specification for what say a Bitcoin transaction has to contain in order to be a valid transaction. Hope you found that interesting, and see you tomorrow in the next video. Bye for now.